That was a former River State governor in Nigeria's Third Republic from January 1992 to that republic was botched by, you know what, the truncation of democracy in November 1993. Sir Rufus Adjudge, 83 years old, 83 years strong. He had a lot to say, and I believe that what he said will echo around River State, because he doesn't speak too much these days. Well, tonight, a major story in Nigeria's 2024 budget conversation, the National Assembly's dramatic rejection of the 14 billion naira budget proposed for Nigeria's judiciary in Nigeria's 2024 budget appropriation bill. Nigeria's judiciary has been allocated 5.3 billion naira as capital expenditure and 8.8 billion naira for recurrent expenditure in the 2024 budget. According to the committee, that budget compromises the independence of Nigeria's judiciary and the ability of Nigeria's judiciary to perform or function effectively. Now, this unprecedented move, it's never happened before, has sparked reactions and it's sparked concerns across the country, raising critical questions about the separation of power and the independence of the judiciary, and also about the future of Nigeria's democracy. Our guest tonight to look at this, we have Judiciary. He's Executive Director of Sterling Law Center. DJ, thank you so much for staying with us, and it's a pleasure to have you tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. Good evening.
What's your initial reaction? You know, it's something I've never heard of. I don't think it's happened before. The National Assembly decision to reject the budget of the judiciary. Do you, see this particular move as something that may affect the independence of the judiciary?
Yes, thank you. Well, what is important and what we should look at is even the trends generally in the budgetary allocations to agencies and arms of government. It would interest you to know that the NDDC alone, for instance, is allocated 324 billion naira in the 2024 budget. Now you have the entire NJC, which is like the monitoring body for the entire judiciary in the country, having 164 billion naira allocated to it, and that this is supposed to cover both overhead and recurrent expenditure. Now, it is alarming. It is alarming, and quite the response or the reaction of the National Assembly is appropriate, because the amount allocated to the NJC is paltry, and it raises serious questions about our commitment as a nation to upholding the constitutional declaration of provisions of the independence of the judiciary. When you look at the pivotal role that the judiciary plays in the country, and the fact that it is the primary body that is supposed to provide the checks and balances for both the judiciary, the legislature, and the executive within our democracy, you will see that this attempt to underfund it may be deliberate. In other words, to render it a toothless bulldog and to make it subservient to these other arms of government. And this is the reason why we must acknowledge that this move by the National Assembly is a very, very patriotic one. We must hail it and we must call it what it is for. Because if we allow this trend to continue, what is going to happen is that you will open up the judiciary to the risk of taking away its independence, risk of interference, risk of external influence. And then you may inadvertently also be creating a fertile ground for corruption to exist in the judiciary. This is the judiciary that is already overburdened. I mean, look at the number of cases that are pending in our courts. And of course, it is not like the judges are not working, but the point is that you have fewer judges than you should ordinarily have. And those few judges are burdened with a lot of cases. Even some of them are accommodated in very terrible courtrooms, terrible offices. And, you know, the implication of this kind of low budgetary allocation, they are far-reaching. When you go to some of the courts and you see some of the things that happen, so you know, our courts have even turned into like police stations where you want to go, you file cases, and you know, court officials, judicial staff tell you, oh, bring money for file. I'm telling you this as a practitioner. This is some of the things you find.
Sorry to interrupt you, Deji, but you said
tells me that at the end of the day.
Yeah, you were saying that you said 164 billion naira for the agency. I think NJC, and you meant to say 164 million, not billion, for the NJC.
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Yeah, you quoted 100, and you said 164 billion naira for the NJC.
Yes.
Is it billion or million?
Million.
Million, yeah. I just want to correct you on that. You said billion. But let's go down memory lane, Deji. This is 14 billion naira for the Nigerian judiciary. In the year 2022, or let's go to 2020, yeah. In the year 2023, the budget that was allocated to the judiciary was 130 billion naira, if you remember. 130 billion naira. Then there was a leaked memo from the judiciary on the issue of poor welfare in their sector. And then the president approved increase by 30 billion or by 20 or 30 billion to 150 billion from 120 or 130 billion naira, if you remember. That was what was put in the budget for the judiciary last year. We go to 2022. In the 2022 budget, the proposal was 120 billion naira, and it was a 9% increase on the 2021 budget, which was 110 billion naira. Now, if you want to factor in inflation and you know, the naira-dollar exchange rate and all that, then maybe it should be going up. How did we get from 150 billion naira, Buhari's last budget, to 14 billion naira? The gap is wide, AG.
You know, you see, like I said, it's ordinarily this is the consequences of our anyhowness, and it just also tells you that what our priorities are as a nation. We obviously only pay lip service to the independence of the judiciary, and of course, actions like this will ultimately make the judiciary dependent on external sources for its funding. But then, like I also said, you see, I think we should be very suspicious of this kind of significant drop, because I understand the proposal was about 514 billion. And when you now see that kind of marginal decrease in the proposal and what was eventually submitted, it calls for investigation. Ideally, if we were a very serious nation, we would want to investigate and know what went wrong and why this proposal was dropped to this kind of level. Because really, if we are committed to the independence of the judiciary, you will find that we will prioritize this kind of expenditure, and we will because my suspicion is that tomorrow someone will come and just simply say, oh, there was a typographical error, there was some mistake or something. But of course, even at that will still also tells you it will still also go to the point of our seriousness too. Because when you present a budget that has that kind of error, then of course it simply shows that you are not serious. Because I assure you that the headings that directly affect the National Assembly or the executive were well taken care of there. So it's disheartening, really. And that reduction should be investigated. And as the executive secretary of the NJC rightly pointed out, the meager allocation will slow down delivery of justice. And those who benefit from the slow space of justice are most of the times the ones who occupy executive offices, those who eventually turn out, who have charges slammed against them, and who look forward to having their cases drawing for as long as 10 years. They are the ones who eventually benefit from that kind, because the ordinary citizen, the ordinary Nigerian, wants justice to be delivered fast. And so this...
Deji. Yes. And I mean, I won't be surprised if what you're saying plays out where we hit a typographical error or a clerical error. The gap is just so wide, and then you're looking at the fact that the entire budget of the government is going up. We're looking at state governments are increasing their budgets. We're looking at the fact that economic planning and the budget ministry and, you know, and all that, finance ministry are getting highest. You expect it should be more right now than it was last year, 150 billion. And we've been seeing it increasing. 150 last year, this year's budget, 130 or 120 the previous year, 110 the previous year. But for you, just a quick one. Buhari, President Buhari, former President Buhari, and God, I never thought we would be saying this, was very keen on passing a law for judicial financial autonomy, for local government financial autonomy, and for state houses of assembly financial autonomy, which they rejected. Talking about state houses of assembly, now we're seeing in River State they're trying to pass some law for autonomy. What are your thoughts on what Buhari signed? Was it just for the state judiciary? Did it affect the federal judiciary? And how is that law supposed to affect what we're seeing play out today?
Okay. Well, I think at the moment, on paper, the federal judiciary is already financially independent. The bill for the amendment of the Constitution that was proposed by the Buhari administration was for the independence of the financial independence of the state judiciary. But you see, it's important for us to understand that there is the theoretical independence and there's practical independence. Now, just imagine that this budget is passed. If it is passed, what it means is that, in fact, the judiciary, even if it is given 100% of its allocation, which doesn't happen, I mean, you're already aware that under the supplementary budget of 2023, supplementary 2023 budget, there are still some outstanding funds that have not been disbursed to the judiciary. Now, so what it means is that if this is allowed, this error or whatever it is allowed to pass, even if 100% of the allocation of the judiciary is released, what it means is that the judiciary will not be able to function at all. And so, yes, while on paper there might have been some, you know, levels, semblance of financial independence, but in practical terms, this is how things can work. But you see, like I always say, what is required is that we as Nigerians, we must all be very vigilant, and that is why one must commend the reaction of the Joint Committee of the National Assembly. You know, because if we're not very vigilant, this is how the independence of the judiciary can be eroded in practical situations. But on paper, you would always have, the government will always argue, the executive can always argue that, look, they are independent. And so it calls for vigilance at all times, especially on this kind of issues.
All right. Another question to look at is, you know, are we sure that 14 billion naira is not enough? Are we sure the 150 billion was not too much if we look at you know, a head by head or line by line analysis of what they need? Look at how many staff they have, because 14 billion naira is still a lot of money, you know. Deji Ajari, thank you so much for your time, Executive Director, Sterling Law Center in Abuja. We hope to have this conversation with you soon again.
Thank you very much for having me.